I'm Danielle from Surviving the Middle, and let's talk about how to organize ourselves as special ed teachers. Veteran special ed teachers already know that staying organized as a special ed teacher is absolutely key. And if you're new to special ed teaching, well, buckle up because organization is going to be your new best friend. In this video, I'm going to show you how I organize myself as a special education teacher, and hopefully you can take a few things from it. Just for clarification, I teach middle school special education, so some of these tips and tricks are really only going to apply to maybe middle school and high school teachers, but I'm hoping some other tips will apply to absolutely everyone. When starting a new school year, the absolute first thing I do is print up all of the IEP at a glances, as well as the notes page and the entire IEP. I file the entire IEP in a folder dedicated to each student, and then the IEP at a glance and notes page is something that I just reference when making my Google Sheets of all the information, which I'm going to go over right now. All right, so once my IEPs have been printed out, I'm going to put all of that information in one place, one that I can interact with daily and update daily, and the best place for that is Google Sheets. And this particular Google Sheet, this IEP list and contact info, is actually from Erin from Making a Statement in SPED. She posted about this on her Instagram, and I immediately downloaded it or made a copy of it and used it right away, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to also put her Venmo information, so if you want to throw her a few bucks once you've used this, I think that would be fantastic because this is something that I use every single day. So this is her copy. She has contact log, parent contact info, and IEPs. And I went ahead and took this and kind of made it my own. So this is mine here. This is from this last year. And I went ahead and blacked out the important information. So what I do is I take all of my students on my caseload and I just add in all of the information, grade, birthday, disabilities. And then over here, I added check boxes for myself to see what other services they require. I have their annual date, their tri-dates, and then the classes there. Those are the ones that we have that are actual services on their IEPs. And then at the end, I also added in whether or not I have signature pages, and those signature pages are uploaded and filed, because that is my downfall, is actually filing the paperwork. And then at the end, any other notes that are required. And this is something that I look at all the time, because while, yes, I use SACE, it will print up a paper copy. This is something that I can manipulate daily as things, progress. So the other tab that I created is one for meetings. So these are my meetings in order. I even color code them to a certain color code that I have, whether or not it's a 30-day, an annual, a triannual, or a part 2 IEP. And I include the student name and the dates, the type of IEP, whether or not the parent was invited, whether or not a translator was needed, or it was also confirmed by the parent and or team members. And then off the side, I usually put in like whether or not I filed it or not. It's just two places I can go to refer to make sure that everything is filed. Can you tell that is not my strong suit? One of the other tabs that I created is what I call paperwork out. At the middle school level and at the high school level, there's paperwork just constantly out, especially this last year when our meetings were online, and then I had to send the paperwork home with the child or through email and have it come back. There was just a lot of extra steps with that. So this was my tab that I used to see what is out and whether or not I received it. And this has been really helpful. And then I add some notes in if need be, if, maybe they're on vacation or something. It's just to remind myself maybe why the paperwork isn't returned quite yet. And then the other tab that I've also included is all of their student schedules. This is a very daunting one to actually organize because at the middle school and high school level, their classes change all the time. I mean, it could change because, gosh, who knows? The wind blew the wrong way and their schedule has to change. So keeping up with all of their schedules, it's a lot. So this is one that I don't update as often. Sometimes I just go into Aries and double check what their schedule is before I need to contact them or anything. But I do include this in there. And also, it is nice to see the next year to make sure their classes are lined up according to their IEP because we had them in those classes the previous year. So this Google Sheet in itself is going to be your best friends. Again, I can access this on my phone. So if I'm in my vice principal's office and we're talking about a particular student, I can pull up their information real quick, as well as some other students, and discuss those as well. So definitely add this to your toolbox. If you're anything like me, you get a ton of emails about your students, especially at the upper elementary and high school level. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I organize my emails so I can make sure all the information is in one place. All right, so keeping your emails organized is very important in this job. At the middle school and high school level, I'm sure at all levels actually, I'm just in constant communication with my administrators, my gen ed teachers, my parents. So it's very important to keep all those emails into one place. Now, before I get into how I organize it, this is sort of for my new teachers here. There's a few pieces of advice that I'd really like to give you in regards to email. The first and foremost, keep emails professional. Emails are not a place for you to chit chat with your coworkers about work. Leave that for texting or happy hour, preferably. Also, when you are making contact with parents over the phone, always, always, always email them right after the phone call and say, hey, it was so great talking to you. This is what we discussed. This is what I'm going to do about it. Whatever it is that you discussed in that phone call, send it in an email right away. Because not only does this document that the phone call was made, it also documents what was said in the phone call as well. Believe me, there's going to be some situations where you're going to have to vouch for what was said. And having an email is very important. Emails are proof or evidence and they hold up in court as well. So just please keep that in mind when sending emails out, okay? All right, so this is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm going to try not to show much information, but the first thing that I do in the beginning of the school year is I scroll all the way down. So in Gmail, you're going to want to scroll all the way down to create new label. So I just name it, caseload 2021, 2022, and click create. And this is where all of my emails for all of my students that year are going to be organized. Now, it's not just students that are on my caseload particularly, but any students in my class as well that may have an IEP or just, some of those students that you just keep a closer eye on. Anytime you email about that student or someone emails you about that student, anytime their name is mentioned, I label it and put it in their own folder. So that was the umbrella folder, the caseload 21 to 2022. Gosh, that's hard to say. So now as I go along, if I get an email about a student, I'm going to go ahead and click create new label again. And this time I can say, student A. And now I can click next label under, and I'm going to find that caseload one. Here we go. And then click create. So now anytime I get an email, let me see if I can do this without showing much information. I'm going to click label at the top and put it in their own folder. So let me see if that's something I can do. Okay, so this was an email that I sent to myself for my vaccine record, and I'm going to label it. So up here is the actual label button. And when I select this, I can choose which label I want. So here's caseload and then student A. And so I can select that and click apply. And now you'll see this label show up here. When you're in your inbox and you have all those check boxes, you can check all the emails that you want into one particular folder and then click label at the top. Unfortunately, I wish I could show you this right now, but I just have too many emails with important information that I just cannot show you right now. But hopefully you guys can figure that one out as well. So label everything. Put any students' emails all in the same folder. So when something were to come up or you need to go back and just look at all of the conversations happening of that particular student, you have it all in one place. And I label absolutely everything. I mean, I think you could see there, I have a ton of labels. And actually, if you add a number in front of it, then those will be at the very tippy top there. So that's something you can access all the time. So that's something I'll do with this caseload for this next year. So I can just quickly access it when needed. When getting your IEP at a glances out to your gen ed teachers, there are two ways that I do it. The good old-fashioned way with printing them up, stapling them all together per teacher, and sending them out to them. But I can also do it digitally through Google Drive, and I'm going to show you how I do that as well. All right, so as I mentioned, there are two ways of getting the IEP at a glances out to your teachers. The first one is to print them all up, organize them by teacher, and put them in their mailbox. And I also include a cover page, which just, lets them know who the case manager is. If they have any questions, here's my email, and that sort of thing too. The other way is to do it digitally through Google Drive. So what I've done is I've created a folder for special ed, and then I created one for shared teacher files. And within this folder, I create a folder for all of my gen ed teachers. And I name it by their last name, then their first name, and then I put in parentheses 2021 to 2022 student IEPs, so they know what the folder entails when I share it with them. And then this is my little cover page here that I include. So once I've created a folder for all of my teachers, this is when I go back and I look at that caseload Google Sheet. Now, I don't have the schedules up yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out all their schedules for the beginning of the year. And then I know I said I don't update this often, but I'll try to go back in and do it by Q3 when a lot of schedule changes are done within our district. And the beautiful part about this is when I click Command F on a Mac or Control F, I can actually search for their name. So I can type in the teacher's name, and then it'll highlight which students have that teacher within their schedule. So then I go to the folder where I've downloaded all of my IEP at a glances. So that would be here. So normally I would have just, up to 30 sometimes IEP at a glances here with last name and then first name and IEP. In this case, I just put a little photo to indicate that. And then this is where you want a split screen if you can. That is the best way. And I go back to where all my teacher files are, and then I click and drag over the IEP into their folder. Yes, this does take some time, but I personally like it because now they can store the IEPs in a safe place. It's not just paperwork that they can just kind of throw around somewhere where someone else can see it. It's discreet, and they can go back and check on it when they need to. So this is an option that I like to use when giving out IEPs to my gen ed teachers. When it comes to actually scheduling the IEPs, there's definitely a lot of organization involved as well. I'm going to show you how I use Google Calendar to help organize those meetings ahead of time, so that way when it comes down to it, I'm not scrambling around. All right, so when it comes to scheduling IEPs, I use Google Calendar. This is what our school site uses, and all of us special ed teachers and admin, we are constantly on Google Calendar. So this is the best way to get everybody invited. So in the beginning of the school year, what I do is I go in and I schedule the IEPs on the actual due date. So let's say it was the 30th of July, I will add that in. Now, if it was a Saturday or Sunday, I'll scooch it up to that Friday, knowing full well that this is not going to be the actual dates, most likely. So I'm just going to go ahead and schedule it. So I'll do last name, first name, annual IEP. Okay, the date, I'll put a date that I think I'm going to hold at that time. And then down here under the description, this is where I go back and look at the IEP and see who needs to be invited. Who are the service providers? Because I definitely forget to invite the speech pathologist from time to time. I don't know. My mind just slips, especially when you're rushing around. So do it now at the beginning of the school year. Who needs to be invited? So you can just say, admin. Let's say on their IEP, they have goals in math. You're definitely going to want the gen ed math teacher there. Okay, so they can discuss how they are doing in that particular area. Now, you can, of course, invite all the gen ed teachers, but this particular teacher needs to be there and discuss how they're doing on their goal. I mean, duh. And then maybe I'll just put the speech pathologist on here, and maybe they have adaptive PE. Okay. And then of course, the parents and the student is also invited. And then I'm just going to save this. So now when I go back, I can see within my month who's due when, make adjustments there, and then I can start inviting people too. The cool thing about making events too is you can also give yourself some notification. So I can send an email I like to do about 3 weeks ahead of time. So that gives me some time to invite the parents, see when's a good time for them, and then start inviting these team members that I added in there as well. This will be key when trying to organize yourself because things come up and you forget. So putting in that notification is going to help you a lot. So hopefully this is something you guys can use to kind of help organize yourself when it comes to IEP meetings. Lastly, when it comes to writing the IEPs and making sure I have everything all together, next to my desk, actually, I like to have a file folder system. I'm not at my school right now to show you, but basically, I take the files of the students that I'm working on and I put them in order of their due dates. So that way, if any signed paperwork comes back, I can throw it in the folder. If I'm getting some new data or writing some samples, I can throw that in there as well. And for me, out of sight, out of mind. So if I see the folders right in front of me, right next to my desk, it reminds me, oh yeah, their IEP's coming up. I should probably get on that. So when it comes down to organizing yourself, you're gonna find your own system, you're gonna get into your own groove, and maybe these are some things you can add to your toolbox. But I would love to hear more about how you organize yourself in the comments so others can benefit from it as well. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications on any of my future videos.